Welcome everybody to this evening's webinar event. We're going to talk about this aggressive new scheme taking place. It's an Article 5 scheme in Georgia, and it just kind of surprised us. And you can probably hear my dog in the background now, but anyways, just ignore my dog, please. I do this out of my home. But anyways, we're going to talk about this aggressive scheme in Georgia, and Christian just authored this great article, probably stayed up till midnight doing it last night is my guess, or maybe later. But he just published this on the New American webpage. And I encourage you all to read it. It has an incredible amount of words, as I found out because I read the whole thing. But if you read that, you're going to get a complete understanding of what's taking place in Georgia. And so anyways, Christian, welcome to this webinar. You got to unmute yourself, Christian.
Okay. Hi. I'm glad to be with you, Evan. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here. All right. So it's 6 o'clock in Appleton, Wisconsin. So you're going to be late for dinner. But you're still at the office as you probably always are there, right?
Yes. They don't allow me to leave. I sleep here.
You sleep under your desk. Okay. I knew at least one employee had to sleep under their desk at night. Okay. Well, glad you're here, Christian, and thanks for doing this on such short notice. You know what's going on in Georgia is such a big thing for America right now. If this there's two con bills they're trying to pass, but if they get passed, it sort of could get people to think that Georgia's the 34th state to call an Article 5 convention, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So you have this Senator Kausert there in Georgia who introduced two resolutions. I think he's the author also of SR 28, the one for the term limits, but the main one focusing on that he introduced this year is SR 29, and it's a bill that would have the legislature of Georgia apply to Congress to call a convention specifically to propose an amendment to the Constitution, specifically the BBA, the Balanced Budget Amendment to the federal Constitution. Now, what's interesting about SR 29, unlike previous BBA Article 5 convention applications, is that in the wording of the bill, which I have in front of me, it says... I
can pull it up here, Christian, if you want me to.
Yeah, it's also in the article as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to click on this link just to show everybody that you can just use that article to find the bill. And here it is. Here's what's going on with it.
Right, you can click on current version of the bill, and it's right there. But it says
it's not a very long bill. It's only 41 lines, right?
Yeah. Okay. It begins on line 21, lines 21 through 32. It says, "Be it further resolved that this application shall be deemed an application for a convention to address only the subject herein stated," which in the previous lines they refer to the Balanced Budget Amendment, "for the purposes of determining whether 2/3 of the states have applied for a convention addressing any of the subjects stated herein. This application is to be aggregated with the applications of any other state legislatures for the single subjects of balancing the federal budget, including but not limited to previously adopted applications from," and it begins to list states: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, Utah, West Virginia, Wyoming, and Wisconsin. And this application shall be aggregated with the same for the purpose of attaining the 2/3 of states necessary to require the calling of a convention, but shall not be aggregated with any applications on any other subject. Now, this is interesting. Now, if you look at this list, you would think that all of these states have previously applied to Congress for the Balanced Budget Amendment version of the CONCON, but 6 of the states there didn't. And those 6 are New York, New Jersey, Kentucky, Illinois, Oregon, and Washington. Those states have not applied to Congress for a convention for a balanced budget amendment. And when you look at the writings there's this guy named David Bidoff. He's with Let Us Vote for a BBA. And he gave a presentation at the American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, last year in July, in which he proposed that we should combine all the calls for the BBA convention with those of 6 other states for a plenary convention or unlimited general convention. And he had a chart on his website. There's a PDF chart on the Let Us Vote website, and they list which states and which applications. And these are the 6 that are non-BBA that they want to add. They're right there in this article. New York, New Jersey, Kentucky, Illinois, Oregon, and Washington. Now, in my article, I hyperlink to the text for each of the original applications from those states. But you see also right there the years that they were passed, the oldest one being from 1789, and the newest ones being from Oregon and Washington from the year 1901, 110 years ago to this year. And you can see there I describe what those applications were for. The New York one, the last sentence of that one makes it clear that they wanted to secure the amendments for the unalienable rights of people, which we achieved with the Bill of Rights. New York's CONCON application was actually passed in February of 1789, and it wasn't until September of 1789 that Congress proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution, the first 10 of which were immediately ratified as the Bill of Rights that we got. So right there you have the text there for the New York application. On the very bottom, it says, I won't read the whole sentence because they didn't believe in periods back then. It just goes on and on. But they say here, we, the legislature of the state of New York, do, in behalf of our constituents in the most earnest and solemn manner, make this application to the Congress that a convention of deputies from the several states be called as early as possible with full powers to take the said Constitution into their consideration and to propose such amendments thereto, and they shall find best calculated to promote our common interest and secure to ourselves and our latest posterity the great and unalienable rights of mankind. And of course, at the time, the anti-federalists, they were concerned about the Constitution that was proposed that came out of the convention in Philadelphia. And the Bill of Rights was introduced to remove any ambiguity that the federal government would be too powerful to the point that it could hinder the rights of American citizens. And this application from New York was actually passed after New York had ratified the Constitution. They were one of the early states to ratify the U.S. Constitution. So they ratified it, but they still wanted an Article 5 convention so we could get a Bill of Rights. But we didn't need the Article 5 convention because we got the Bill of Rights. And anyway, the other applications, which we don't need to go into all the details of those, but for example, New Jersey, Kentucky, and Illinois, they were passed in 1861. And if you read the applications for those states, they make heavy reference to the conflict between the states that was at the time hadn't yet come. All 3 of those applications were written before the Battle of Fort Sumter, so the Civil War had not yet officially started. But they were written from the point of view trying to avert the Civil War from starting by coming to some sort of agreement via new amendments, maybe to the Constitution through a convention. And then, of course, Oregon and Washington, those came out in 1901, the same year that 14 other states besides Oregon and Washington all passed specific applications for a convention, but asking for the direct election of senators, which we got through the 17th Amendment. So all of these applications, while people like Bidoff and even Robert Nadelson, one of the supposed scholars of the Article 5 convention movement out there, they'll claim in their writings that these 6 applications are for a general convention, even though it's quite clear that all of them, with the exception of probably the state of Washington application that doesn't mention direct election of senators in it, all of these other applications, they all had a clear purpose when looking, when reading them, or in the case of Washington, looking at the historical context. So one can debate whether these are general conventions or not, but the point is, you want to combine them together.
I want to butt in real quick. This says they're calling a constitutional convention. This is what the state of let's see here, Washington called. But this isn't a constitutional convention. That's what these convention of states people tell me all the time. So why would they use a resolution that actually calls for a constitutional convention?
Yeah, Mark Meckler, he is one of the big shakers and movers in the convention movement. He's, of course, as you know, the president and co-founder of Convention of States Project. And long before he founded that organization in 2015, he used to call the Article 5 convention or the Constitutional Convention, he called it a constitutional convention. But now these guys, they like to use the phrase a convention of states. And the reason why they do that is because that term constitutional convention, people associate it, rightly so, with a convention that can propose almost any amendment to the Constitution, including even rewriting the Constitution. So to remove any kind of, to assuade any kind of fear or concern that this convention that they want, the Article 5 convention, that it could do that, they changed the name and said, oh, no, we don't want a constitutional convention because that's bad. We agree with you guys on the JVS and Eagle Forum, but that's a bad idea. What we want is a convention of states. That's totally different, even though it's from Article 5 as well. Meckler and Robert Nadelson, all these guys, they've moved away from using the phrase constitutional convention, and they claim that Article 5 doesn't authorize a constitutional convention, that it's something entirely different. And this is just a marketing ploy on their behalf to basically, they're lying to legislators to try to convince them that if they do this application, this is safe and it won't become a runaway convention. That's why they've changed the terminology all of a sudden, even though you can look back at even a lot of the applications for the BBA, and they'll say constitutional convention in them from the 1970s and 80s. Even right now in Connecticut, they have a bill in their legislature for a totally open convention, and it says constitutional convention, and that's this year, 2021, in the Connecticut legislature, and in other legislatures too. They freely use the word constitutional convention, but when they're trying to convince the legislators, and especially conservative leaning states, oh no, we don't want that. So it's just more manipulation from the Article 5 lobby.
Okay, Christian, I just promoted Susie Voiles to a panelist, so she may join us here in a few minutes. She has done a lot of great work in Georgia. She's the president of Eagle Forum in Georgia, and she was actually the only person allowed on our side to speak during the hearing yesterday in Georgia, which didn't surprise me. I felt fortunate that they even allowed one of us to speak. But of course, the Convention of States promoters got nearly all the time at the meeting, which is probably close to the 20 to 35 minutes is what they got, and we got 3 minutes. So it always seems to be pretty much, it's lopsided until the full committee hearings, and then everybody seems to be given an equal amount of time. But here's what happens. The Convention of States people usually know beforehand when the meeting's going to be, when the full committee is going to meet, and so they can make their traveling plans before us. And we usually find out 2 days before or 1 day before, and then we all have to rush to the Capitol to stop this. And I'm saying this from experience in other states. I've not experienced this in Georgia yet because I've only been a field coordinator in Georgia for the last 3 years or so. But in South Carolina, this is how these people work. And I don't want to get too far off the subject here, but this is what we're facing. We're facing people who are trying to fool us. And they realize that the only way they're going to get this Constitutional Convention called is by fooling us to where we just don't know what, to where we're asleep at the wheel when it all happens. Susie, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself, Susie?
There we go. I'm sorry. I can't get it to pull up on my computer, but I'm on my phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. And you can turn your video off if you want, or if you want to leave it on, you can. I don't know if you're trying to look at your phone right now. So what I'll do is I'll shut your video off for you unless I can see half your face right now. So, okay, there you are. Sometimes people have a hard time with that. So I'll just let you get comfortable there. So just so everybody knows, Susie and I met last year, and we had the great experience of watching the former BBA resolution for CONCON in Georgia. We were there to see that it expired. And so what they're trying to do now is they're trying to, restart that process all over again, because it was a huge blow to them to lose Georgia. But Susie, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing in Georgia?
One of the greatest things that I'm seeing that's very disturbing to me, can you hear me all right?
We hear you great. Yeah.
Okay, is the fact that our elected officials, especially our conservative elected officials, do not seem to know their Constitution. And that is very disturbing to me, particularly when they're getting ready to vote on something that is so intrinsic to the Constitution. So that's kind of the background. Most of these people I have a pretty good reputation with. Some of them I have a better reputation. Obviously, Senator Calcert tries to walk the other way whenever he sees where I am.
He kind of did that to me too. Yeah.
I noticed that he did not want any discussion. I was very pleased that they did at least allow me to speak. I was surprised, and that they even granted me 1 extra minute than they said they would, 3 whole minutes. But my strategy is sort of twofold here. Last year, I lobbied all of the Democrats, and they were strong no's. They were voting against it. And I had every single one of them. We have at least 1 more Democrat this year. And I hate to say that's who I'm going to have to count on. And I did talk to the one senator who was very much against term limits. But from my perspective, I think and she was against balanced budget also, but what I'm seeing is they're just kind of, this is spaghetti to them that they've tossed at the wall. They're trying to see what's going to stick. They don't care which one they get passed. They just want one of them passed, particularly when you see these different attempts at how are we going to aggregate this. Did you notice where he said in the one for the BBA that Georgia would be the 34th state? And then he quickly backed off of that and said, well, there's only 17 or 18, I think, maybe not even that many. So I didn't know if that was an attempt on his part to garner more support.
He may have wanted, it's just, an elementary school kid could figure this out. It's so blatantly obvious that this whole entire now both resolutions, it's the BBA resolution that adds in the additional states, right? It's not the term limits resolution too. Am I correct? Or is it both? Do both resolutions add the additional states, such as New York? I think it's just the one with the BBA amendment. But anyways, I think it's SR 29, right? That's probably the one they'd rather have pass. Yeah,
I think so.
Because that would make it to where they can sound the bells and get people excited, saying that Georgia's the 34th state. But which, the mainstream media, given the fact that they're involved in this conspiracy against America, they could get on board with, getting people to believe that. And we've seen how people so quickly believe in this face mask thing that's taken place in America. And the media can pretty much manipulate a good portion of the population to believe whatever they want the population to believe. So it's us as members of the John Birch Society, and I know as Susie, you're a member of Eagle Forum, to help direct the paths of these people to being morally straight, because Bill in his heart, he's got to know what he's doing is wrong, right?
I would think so.
I mean, if he doesn't think he's wrong, he needs to go back to elementary school, because that's how easy it is to figure this out. But it's obviously wrong what he's doing. But we need more people in Georgia to be calling Bill Calcert and other senators and getting them straightened out on this. And it's like you said, Susie, they don't know the Constitution, a lot of them. So they've lost faith in the Constitution, a lot of them, because they don't believe, they don't understand it in the first place. And so more of us in the John Birch Society need to reach out to these people and say, hey, can I help teach you the Constitution? Christian, this was awesome what you did at the end of this article. And I'm going to scroll down here really quick, everybody. So I hope I don't make anybody dizzy here while I'm scrolling down, because it's a long article. I recommend you read the whole thing, though. It's better than any book right now. Well, I should say it's better than any book, but it'll take you the evening to read, and you don't have to pay anything for it. Let's just put it that way. But here's the link at the bottom here, Constitutional Solution video series. So if you go to that last paragraph in the article and click on that, right there, you've got a link to all these videos and to documents that we have that go with the Constitution as a solution, to where anybody can learn the Constitution the way we, as those of us who are members of the John Birch Society, the way that we learn the Constitution. And this is what gives us the confidence to tell these representatives. I used to do it with my Congressman Trey Gowdy. I called him out more than once. Hey, you're disobeying the Constitution. Well, then he'd argue with the arguments that you learn in law school. Well, I would use what I learned with the Constitution workshop, and I believe I won every argument. But I guess that's up for others to decide if I won those arguments. But anyways, Trey thought he won the argument. I thought I won the argument. But it's the Constitution as a Solution workshop that gave me the confidence to argue the points that our founders would have argued with the Constitution. So anyways, I'll quit sharing that right now. So Susie, what else do we need to know about what's going on in Georgia? I mean, we really don't have enough people there explaining this to senators right now. So we definitely need more people. There's a lot of people on this call right now. We have over 40 people on the call, and some of them live in South Carolina. Some of them live in North Carolina. What do you recommend people do to help us in Georgia?
I think one of the biggest things that we could do, and that we've been advocating with our members, is to make phone calls and to targeted people. And we're not even worrying about the Democrats. We're worrying about the Republicans, because they seem to be on. So are most of these people JBS people that are on the line?
I think most of them are, and you explained it very well, I think, when I was with you. The Democrats are voting against it for the wrong reasons, right? But at least they're voting against it.
Right. And that was one of the reasons I didn't get into too many constitutional arguments, because I didn't want them to go, hey, this is going to be a great way for us to change our Constitution. And I am just very, very concerned. So we're making phone calls and we're writing emails, and I can happily send you what we're sending out, so that people have talking points that are both constitutional arguments, and they're also common sense, just arguments. You know, how we were talking about, what was it? They said there's only been 6 years we haven't had a national emergency.
Yeah.
Since our founding. I was astounded at that. So that means this goes out the window anyway.
Yeah, and I want to show everybody this too real quick. So I'm going to go back to sharing Christian's article here. But Christian included this information about the Constitution that they already have written for us if this Constitution Convention takes place. And I'm not saying everybody wants this Constitution that's trying to change our Constitution. But this is the one made by the Ford. It was funded by the Ford Foundation. I'm going to pull it up here. But the interesting thing in this is, look here at section 1, freedom of expression, of communication, of movement, of assembly, or of petition shall not be abridged except in declared emergency. So when is there ever not an emergency these days?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think another thing, we need to hit these Republicans hard with the constitutional arguments, because they hold the Constitution, except for dear Senator Cowsert, and they send them, what am I trying to say?
Yeah.
I have messages popping up, I'm sorry.
It can be distracting. I know what that's like.
Yes, but anyway, they have,
Bill's the last one. Bill's the last one we need to work on, because he's the sponsor of this. He's obviously deeply invested in making an error on what actually is taking place. So he's going to continue to push this. But we can work on other senators that are Republicans.
Yes, and I can send you those senators. And one of the things that concerns me, our lieutenant governor has been on the news. All of you know about our election debacle that we had here. But he has been on the news consistently, making remarks that, first of all, are not very, what I would call American. Secondly, not very Republican. And he does not have a clue. I remember I was sitting in the gallery last year and he actually banged the gavel and he said the measure passed, and the secretary had to tell him, no, it didn't.
I've never seen that happen.
I had not either. And so he is being led by Calcert and by Butch Miller.
Mhm.
And both of them I believe that Calcert, I'm just going to be blunt, Calcert has to be big on the take.
Mhm, mhm.
And Butch Miller is a really nice guy, but he is very influential with the lieutenant governor. But I will send you people. See, look at his great smile there.
Yeah, he's out of Gainesville too. We may have somebody here that lives in Gainesville that could obviously put some pressure on him to stop pushing this, right?
Dallas, don't you live around Gainesville?
She may not be able to talk in right
Okay.
now because she's muted. I think I have to move her to a panelist. But yeah, we can find people. What about there's other sponsors on this list? Who do you think we could work on to maybe get them? Yeah.
I definitely think you can work on Bruce Thompson. I spoke with him the other day. I think we can work on Dolezal. I think we can work on the chairman of the committee that we saw. And that was.
So Bruce is in White, Georgia. So if anybody's in the White, Georgia area, think about that. Okay.
Right. And then we can also work on Marty Harbin. He's the one that actually gave me an opportunity to speak. We need to work on Blake Tillery.
Why am I seeing? Oh, so Marty's not a sponsor though. Okay. Blake Tillery. Where is Blake on this? Blake's not a sponsor either. Okay. So I'm looking at the sponsor list right now. Maybe I need to look at the whole Senate list.
And then we need to work on Kay Kirkpatrick.
Okay. Let's just move to the Senate Government Oversight Committee because this is the committee. It's going to be you said now. I've been told it maybe on the floor on Monday.
Yes, that's
so
what
doesn't it have to be? Yeah. Doesn't it have to be voted out of committee though?
It went through rules faster than Sherman went through Atlanta.
And the puppets. You hear that, Christian? You got to start using that at Appleton, okay? Okay.
I'll keep that in mind.
You're learning about what we say in the South. Okay. Okay. So there is not going to be a full committee hearing where we can come speak for 5 minutes at a time or 3 minutes at a time and bring our lead speakers. It's just going to go straight to the Senate floor.
That's the way it's appearing right now.
Okay. So the best chance we got is by calling senators and getting them activated against this.
That's right. Okay. But Kay Kirkpatrick is a sponsor. I was very surprised. She's actually my senator. So I'm going to work hard on her, but she needs somebody other than me. She was texting me last time and saying, oh, after the first vote failed, she said, they're doing this amendment. And she took a screenshot and sent it to, she knew I was in the gallery, sent it to me. She said, is this better? Can I vote for it now? And I said, no. And she went to the bathroom on the second vote. She wasn't.
Yeah. So Caleb's in Marietta. We've definitely got somebody here, I think, from Marietta on the call. So if you're from Marietta, call your Senator Kay Kirkpatrick if this is your senator. I guess there could be 2 senators from Marietta. Not likely, I think, but maybe. But anyways, if this is your senator, call her tomorrow. The phone numbers are right there, and get her to understand how bad of an idea this call for Article 5 convention is.
Yes, and I would call their district office tomorrow because usually on Friday they're not at the Capitol. You need to call John Albers. He's a sponsor. He's in North Fulton County. You need to call Chuck Payne. That one really surprised me.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Dalton, Georgia. If anybody lives in Dalton. Okay. What was the name
And-
before that? John Albers?
John Albers, he's kind of
Okay.
Roswell, Milton.
Oh, we have
around there.
members in Roswell. Okay, if anybody here is in Roswell, call John Albers tomorrow. You said to call his district office, right?
I think that would be better.
Okay.
Or call both, to be frank. And when I ask people to call here, we're targeting every Republican except, of course, the Lieutenant Governor, Butch Miller, and Mike Duggan, and oh golly, who's the ringleader? Cowsert.
Yeah.
And the reason being is particularly women have influence all over the entire state.
Mhm.
And they know that if they keep going in a great conservative constitutionalist manner, we're going to help them regardless of where we live. Otherwise, they know they could be in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason Anavatarte would be a good one also. He's brand new.
Okay.
And I think he's just been swayed. Hey, and what a lot of these people have is, unfortunately, they're afraid of their committee assignments and
Mhm.
potential leadership positions. What we had with those who were calling for a special session with the election where there was obvious fraud,
Right.
we saw those 4 that were calling for the special section.
Mhm. So
There
this
was
is
actually 5 of them. They were demoted.
yeah. Okay, so Jason, he lives in Dallas, Georgia. So for anybody in Dallas, Georgia, give him a call. Okay. All right. I see your fingers on your video camera. Do you want me to turn your video camera off, Susie, or do you want to?
Oh,
I know it's hard to hold. I know it's hard to hold.
my video camera is. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well,
There, is that better?
you're not the first person. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I'm sorry. I know you're trying to hold your phone up and do this with us, and it was last minute. You rushed up to your computer and you joined us. Okay, so Bruce Thompson, we've already talked about Bruce in White, Georgia. It'd be good just to pick off, the sponsors and get them educated on the Constitution, and then everybody should know who the Republican senator is that lives in Georgia. Here's one in Statesboro. We got to have a member in that area that can call. Billy Hickman. Oh, that was Billy Hickman. I'm starting to. Okay. Lee Anderson lives in Grovetown, Georgia. We got to have somebody out there. So be thinking, everybody. Maybe you know somebody in these areas.
And he's a good man.
Is he? So he's worth reaching out to. Okay. Okay.
One advantage we have, particularly if people are calling on cell phones, is our area codes don't necessarily match with where we live now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not advocating that anybody tell a lie, but
Mm-hmm.
our Constitution doesn't just apply to the state of Georgia. It applies to the entire United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's critical that these people see that what they're about to vote on. So
Now, is Dominion Voting in charge of your area codes?
Somebody where you don't live.
Is Dominion Voting in charge of your area code? Your phone numbers? No, I'm joking about that. But you're saying the area codes do not match the areas anymore. Okay, never mind. I was trying to make a joke there. Okay, so Senator Greg Dolezal, he lives in Alpharetta. We have members in that area, so that should be easy for us to call Senator Greg Dolezal, right?
Right.
Okay.
In fact,
Frank.
a lot of your Johns Creek people that were at the meeting, Greg is probably their senator.
Wow. Well, that'd be easy. That'd be easy for us, right? Danielsville, Georgia. Frank Ginn. I don't know if I know where Danielsville is yet. Larry Walker. Perry, Georgia. There you go. Somebody's got to be out there in Perry, Georgia, right? Give him a call.
And Frank Ginn, his district butts up next to Cowsert's district, so that's why he's important.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
we already. And we already talked
let
about
him know.
Chuck Payne. Okay. So Chuck Payne is another one we need to contact. This one's in Cordell, Georgia. Cardin Summers, Senator Cardin Summers.
And he's kind of an outlier. In other words, he's sort of toward the bottom
Yeah.
part of Georgia, southwest side.
Okay.
So he doesn't, it's okay.
Okay. Well, maybe we get someone here to call him. Any of us can just call every single senator. You know, I'm not going to do it because I'm the field coordinator. That's not my job. But we need local citizens calling their senators, right? So do the best you can. If you're in Georgia, just pick up the phone tomorrow and call all these senators. Now, Chuck Hufstedler, it looks like he's in Rome, Georgia. That's home to David Goldenshoe, right? Are you? No, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. So David Goldenshoe is the big Article 5 guy. So
right.
So it'd be a big deal to get Chuck on our side. So maybe if we got a member in Rome, Georgia, let's try to get Chuck to quit sponsoring it and see what we can do there. Now, David Goldenshoe, people don't know, he just wants an Article 5 convention called. It doesn't matter how it's called. He even lists Wolfpack as a group on his website that he's fully okay with George Soros's group calling an Article 5 convention from the looks of it. So anyways, Kay Kirkpatrick, we've already mentioned her. She's in Marietta. That'd be easy for us. I mean, we got a lot of members in that area. There's no reason somebody from Marietta should be sponsoring this legislation with as many members as we have in that area. Max Burns is in Sylvania. We have a group. We have a Constitution as a Solution group in Sylvania. We really got to get this guy changed.
Terrific.
Wow. Okay. So I've learned something just by going through this. I hope everybody's enjoyed this. And Christian, I hope we're not taking away from you right now, but this is something I think needed to happen. We need to go after the sponsors, everybody. And this is an easy way to do it. And you can easily do it by going to Christian's, his New American Magazine article, and just click in on the first link here. It's in the third paragraph. Just click on that link. And there you go. These are the sponsors for SR 29 right there. Okay. So David Gunter asked, what is the SR number for the other one? So we have SR 29 and we have SR 28. And the
28.
term limits bill is important too to stop, but probably not as
Yes.
important as 29, right? Because 29 is sort of like, with 28, they're not going to say they're the 34th state they call, right? Or what do you think?
I don't know. It depends on, I'm wondering if their strategy is just to get one of them passed. But term limits, I think we debunked that pretty well the other day.
Yes, you did. You did. Yeah, you did an excellent job. Yeah.
And I think it's also kind of hypocritical that they're not term limiting themselves, but they're
Bill Cowser, he's been in office for what, 14 years, he said?
right.
And so I almost asked him, if he would have walked away from me, I'd been like, hey, why don't you just term limit yourself next term and do us all a favor, because you're the one advocating for term limits, right?
Well, and not just that, but at one point he was not going to run again. And my predecessor actually started to run. And as soon as she jumped in the race and he primaried, he got back in the primary. So we have some leverage with him. I'm not sure what his deal is.
He was raised in Macon, Georgia, just like John Birch was. So we got to be able to strike a chord with him there by saying, hey, this is, you got to quit going against the John Birch Society. Anyways, so if you live in his district, I mean, he's a president and he knows people at the Sertoma Club. So if you go to the Sertoma Club, if you're a member of that, there's so many ways you can influence people that are close to him to maybe stop this. Anyways, Emery Leonard asked, since many of the state calls for a convention, since many of the state calls for a convention are extremely old, do they or have they expired? And if so, when do or did they expire? And why does Mark Meckler, COS organization, believe they can be counted even if old? Okay, so let's get this straight with Emory. It's not Mark Meckler's organization that is trying to wrap in these old calls for Constitutional Convention. This is U.S. term limits, and this is help me out here. The BPA,
one
the
of the
BPA
groups,
task force.
Let us vote for a BBA is one of the groups, and also Robert Nadelson, one of the con experts that's always quoted. He wrote a paper in 2018 on calling for the aggregation of not just the BBA con applications, but all the con applications. All the plenary or general ones with those of any subject to get 34.
And is this the article right here? Is June 7th, 2018?
Yeah, if you click on the where it says paper there, it takes you to Robert Nadelson's article, and the very bottom, the very last sentence of that article, I quoted it in the New American article too there, but the very bottom of that article he wrote, he calls for aggregating them. And that article, he just goes through, legal gymnastics trying to explain why those 6 application calls should be used. He ignores the purposes of them and just focuses on the fact that they're application calls, and so thus they could be used to be aggregated with a VBA.
Yeah, this is a desperation attempt on their part, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's because they're plateauing. They haven't reached 34, whether it's the BBA route, the COS route, U.S. term limits, or even Wolfpack. None of these groups have achieved 34. So in order to get to that mark, well, now they're going to start including these applications that are so old. And to answer that question about having these application calls expired, that's a good question. And I'm not a lawyer. Not that you have to be a lawyer to understand this stuff. Like a lot of these guys claim you have to be. But the New York application call, in my opinion, that should be considered expired, because not only is it from 1789, but the purpose of it was for securing the unalienable rights of American citizens, and we got that with the Bill of Rights. I don't see how that would still be valid. So does that mean that all the application calls for the direct election of senators, those are all still valid? I mean, I guess they're using one of them in here as well, for sure. But some of these really shouldn't be considered valid. I don't understand how an application call for a convention to prevent the Civil War in 1861 has anything to do with a desire to balance the budget. So I would say it's dubious.
Isn't the point being proven here, Christian, that it's Congress that calls the convention? Because for so long, the Convention of States project, and Mark Meckler especially, has said the states get to call this convention. But yeah, go ahead, Susie. You're muted, I think.
I think that I want to hear what Christian has to say, but I think that is the biggest fallacy of this whole thing. They're trying to give us a security blanket that, the states are in total control and the states decide who the delegates are and things like this, that I think their security blanket has a lot of holes in it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're getting lots of questions here. Christian, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Article 5 lobby has been lying to legislators for years now, perhaps even decades, that they'll be able to control the convention, that they'll be able to recall delegates, that they'll be able to set up the rules for the convention. That's why you've seen some of these pre-convention conventions to create the rules. And all of this is just meant to remove any kind of fear that the convention could be run away. Because I would say that most legislators in the country, even those that back a lot of these application calls, most of them, perhaps all of them, don't want an open convention. So they have to convince them that this is going to be limited. That's why they've invented this whole lie that all the application calls have to be for the same purpose. Because if they're for the same purpose, that means the convention can't be limited. And if the convention is limited, well, then it can't be a runaway convention. Well, all you have to do is read Article 5. You don't have to be a lawyer. Article 5 is just one paragraph. And Article 5 states that the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states. It doesn't say anywhere there about that the applications all have to be the same, nor does it say anywhere here that the convention could be limited. In fact, it says shall call a convention for proposing amendments I mean, that's plural. So where does it say here that Congress or the states can limit the scope of the convention? I mean, if they could limit the scope of the convention, then the delegates would not have the inherent right of we, the people, to
Right.
change or alter or abolish our constitution like we have affirmed in the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
So
Right.
if there's no method for, if we theoretically wanted to change the Constitution, without a method to do so, we would have to result to open civil war or revolution, and the founders didn't want that to happen. So we do have Article 5 in the Constitution for that purpose. In addition to to change the Constitution, but we don't want to change the Constitution. It's worked out so well for us. The problem is that these members of the federal government haven't obeyed it, and many in the state governments also haven't obeyed it. So we need to get back to obeying the Constitution, which begins with knowing the Constitution. And that's the problem. Many people don't know the Constitution. They've relegated their personal study to people like Meckler and Robert Nadelson, the experts, to explain to them what the founders wrote in such simple words. The Constitution is not a thick document. It's very thin. And if you want to understand it further, well, there's the Federalist Papers. See what the founders had to say about it. But no, Meckler and Michael Ferris and Robert Nadelson, they want you to think that the Constitution is a collection of case law. That's not the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's a misinterpretation of the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they want you to think the common man cannot understand the Constitution, and that's why you need to rely on them to decipher what it says for you.
I just want to say one more thing also. If you, I sent you a link, Evan, to a PDF from the website Let Us Vote for a BBA. I sent it to you as a private message there. Just that link. And this is a PDF for Q&As to convince people why the BBA con idea is a good thing. And on the first question, the first question on that Q&A is very revealing. From letusvoteforabba.org. In the Q&A, it says, how could a balanced budget amendment, BBA, address a national emergency like COVID-19? And the answer from Let Us Vote for a BBA, their own words, a BBA could be designed to allow emergency spending above its annual spending growth limit, SGL. Excess spending in 1 year could reduce the SGL over future years by the emergency spending amount plus interest. In other words, they would allow for emergency spending. So that means that these trillions of dollars of COVID relief bills, including the $1.9 trillion one that the Democrats passed just in the Senate and in the House that Biden wants to sign with all the goodies in there, that would be acceptable under this BBA. That would be constitutional, having this emergency spending. So, I mean, this thing's a total joke. And like Susie mentioned earlier, we've only not had a national emergency for 6 years of what, 230 plus years of American history. So even if we had the BBA in the Constitution, it wouldn't even be effective. So why bother going through the rigmarole of a convention in which we could lose the Constitution in the process just to get an amendment that won't even do anything?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
Wow.
the best line I've heard yet. I love that line.
Feel free to use it. It's not copywritten.
He rubs shoulders with Birchers every day, so he does have a an advantage to some of us, So he gets to hang out with the CEO and the rest of the leadership at headquarters.
Evan, you're recording this video, so you can find that snippet later and just use it everywhere.
Yeah, we are recording, so if we'll have it published later. Okay, I'm getting so many questions. I know we've got our on-air talent, Daniel Natal. He is actually listening in. I was going to have him chat just for a little bit, but we'll get there. Daniel, hold on here if you don't mind, okay? Dallas Hamilton asks, what is the latest we can call the senators? Is it Friday? Is it tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. That's right.
Gotta call them tomorrow. Okay.
Why didn't they call them tonight too and leave voicemails in addition to flood the voicemail lines too? Or is that not a good idea?
That's an okay idea. I would say email, and that link also goes to the email as well that we were playing with earlier.
Okay.
At least that way you'll get it in, and in your subject line, write oppose Article 5 BBA.
Okay. I'm going through, there are so many chat messages here. I'm trying to go through to see if there's any questions. So everybody, I'm going to just keep going through them to see what we have. And this has been a great chat session for those that are looking at the chat box here. Okay. Here's Clint Little. He says, I'm Clint Little. I'm a constitutionalist for 40 years. I'm 63. I am new to John Birch Society. Therefore, I have not put in the work you all have. You actually spelled that wrong. You said you all. It's y'all, Clint. Sorry. I'm trying to teach Christian a few things while he's, we have somebody from Wisconsin here. But he says, I have had a thought because of this stolen election. I know process is important, but I wonder if any appeal to process does any good when people with no moral compass. And David, Clint, you make a good point. So how do you do this, Susie? Because I know you were, you even made it on that big podcast with, I'm trying to remember the name of the podcast, but weren't you mentioned for exposing the election scam? You know what happened?
I am, and you can pray about this in regard to this bill.
Yeah.
I have a whistleblower letter out, and some of the senators, like Marty Harbin, who is a fine Christian man, came up to me one day in the street about 2 weeks ago, and he said, Susie, he said, did they do anything about your firing? And I said, no, and not yet, and I don't expect them to. He said, well, they said you were fired because you were taking videos. And I said, of what? And this is during the recount. I said, I was counting ballots. Both of my hands were busy. How would I have, I wasn't stationary. I said, I wasn't taking any videos. And he said, they lie. They just lie. And he said, did the GBI come to investigate you? And I said, no. And he said, I can't believe these guys. Our Assistant Secretary of State said I recanted my affidavit. Now, remember, an affidavit is something you sign under penalty of perjury. And those are pretty serious here. Well, I don't know. We throw everything else out, but I'm sure they'd nail me. Why would I perjure myself? And so I'm beginning to think a lot of these, my attorney's kind of going behind, but I said, this is starting to make sense why they are trying to kind of chip away at my reputation, because they knew I was going to come out strong against this. And that's why they're, I think, trying to get it through so fast. Anyway, just to say that I think there are, most of the people on that committee are good, moral people, and they need to be persuaded that this is not, they're being lied to. I mean, be frank, they're being lied to. And that they cannot jeopardize everybody in the United States. It is putting, there is too much at stake to believe this lie.
Yeah. And by the way, the conspirators, the globalists, they want us to quit. They want us to think there's no hope in changing these people. And so, and Susie, we'll keep you in our prayers. We definitely will, because you are a brave lady, and Georgia is definitely it's under attack compared to other states. It really is under attack. And you're one of the few that's super strong out there that's exposing what's taking place. And we need more of our members to be more involved, to be exposing it. So Susie, you're not one of the few that's doing this. We need a lot more people doing this.
You know what this is? For me, this, and I'm not going to go into the long story, this is my Valley Forge. And we need to remember that. And some of you read the story of what happened at Valley Forge. The dysentery, the rags on their feet. They were 1 week away from being released from the army. Women came to help things. I mean, things were really dire. And yet, what did the Lord provide on Christmas Eve? A bunch of drunk Hessian soldiers. And Washington wound up with a great victory there. This is dire, yes. Yeah. But if we work hard and we're strategic and we have just a short amount of time, we can accomplish this. We can do what we owe those who built this country and keep this country as foundational as we can. We can repair the other junk. That wasn't the word I wanted to use, but that's what I'll use. That goes on.
We don't use those words they use in Wisconsin, right?
I don't know what they all use in Wisconsin either. I'm originally from New York.
Yeah, you're from New York. You
Well,
you from the part of New York you're from, you only use kind words though.
Yeah, I'm from Southern New York. We call it Brooklyn.
There's a Southern New
tell.
York.
I
I like
tell.
that. Okay.
Yep, I can tell you're a Southerner.
Okay, well, I think I've made it through all the questions here. I've unmuted Daniel Natal. He's one of our on-air talents. He just did a video with Dr. Duke Pesta that appeared, I think, on the New American video page. Daniel, do you have any words of wisdom for us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. No, I just wanted to, Christian.
That's a real. Is that your high school yearbook photo that pops up?
I don't know. I don't even know what that is. It looks like a mugshot.
Yeah, it does.
I was thinking the same thing.
I look like a Turkish assassin or something. Just to hit something that Christian said, he said to be able to follow the Constitution, you have to know the Constitution, right? And so many people, especially people in positions of responsibility, they don't even know it. And so John Stuart Mill in 1861, he wrote this great book called Considerations of Representative Government, and he said, no matter how great your Constitution is, if you don't have people willing to enforce it, then it's meaningless. And this is his quote. He says, "But political checks will no more act of themselves than a bridle will direct a horse without a rider. If the checking functionaries are as corrupt or as negligent as those whom they ought to check, and if the public, the mainspring of the whole checking machinery, are too ignorant, too passive, or too careless and inattentive to do their part, little benefit will be derived from the best administrative apparatus." Right. So we're in that position where we have, and Evan just said that. He said we have to be active. We have to get out there. And John Stuart Mill says that. He says a republic requires an active populace. Right. He said, so you have to do jury duty. You have to vote. You have to be active in your community. He says all that is required in a tyranny is passivity and obedience. So if you notice, we're being trained to be passive. We're being trained to just kind of go with the flow. And just really quick, if I may pontificate just 1 second longer, this is clearly, I mean, a gambit for them to basically, it's a Trojan horse move. It's about a balanced budget, or it's about term limits. They know very well that if they can trigger this, this convention of states, then it's going to be a free for all, and they'll be able to switch out the entire Constitution, which is, I mean, they've had a second parallel Constitution since the 1970s. Chief Justice Warren Burger was helping them put together like a second, artificial constitution. By the way, that's in the Shadows of Power by James Perloff, and he talks about that. And he cites George Kennan, who was a Council on Foreign Relations guy. And George Kennan said that he was calling for a Council of Wise Men that would be kind of like a parallel Senate, right? And this Council of Wise Men would have the power, kind of lifetime appointment, Supreme Court powers. And what's frightening to me is Trump tweeted out right before he left office. He did this tweet saying that the Democrats were going to try to put 26 people on the Supreme Court. So what it looks like they're creating is this Council of Wise Men who will rule without any influence from the electorate, who will be lifetime appointees, who will have ultimate power, over the legislative functions of government, the judiciary functions of government, all without any oversight and all without being able to vote them out. And this is what they want. So what it looks like they're doing is they're telling us, they're dangling that carrot. Oh, this is for balanced budgets or for term limits. But they know that once that opens up, they have this second parallel constitution that they're going to slip in. And we have to remember, the first constitution was done illegally. The first constitution, they were sent to convene to actually reform the Articles of Confederation. They had no authority to create a whole new constitution, which they did. So we already have that precedent of when they open that up, anything can happen, and anything did happen. So we know that the last time they did this was 1787. So if they can get us, if they can bait us into opening that door and getting the camel's nose under the tent, boom, they win. Because they all of a sudden say, oh, well, all of this happened. Oops. We didn't mean it. I mean, look when Nixon shut the gold window in 1973 or 74, I believe it was. He said, "Oh, this will only be temporary. We're just going to decouple the dollar from gold temporarily." Well, 50 years later, it's still decoupling. The same thing with COVID. Oh, we're just going to do this for 2 weeks, masks for 2 weeks. We're going to flatten the curve, and that's it. And 2 weeks becomes permanent. So this is what they do. They tell us it's going to be limited in scope, and then once we allow the camel's nose under the tent, boom, they get to trigger everything else that they already have planned.
Stephen Green asks, where can I find that quote by John Stuart Mill? Is it in a book or an article?
Yeah, it's in Considerations of Representative Government, and I'll even link it. Here's it. You can find it on Project Gutenberg. Let's see. And I only know that because I was reading it with my son.
Oh my goodness, this in from Christian Gomez. Hi, Daniel. It's an honor to be in the same video as you. I am also a big fan of your videos. What, do you want his autograph? Do you want to, I mean,
no, I want his. I like Gomez. He's incredible.
I love your videos, Daniel. I'm always posting them on Facebook.
Okay. Nobody ever wants my autograph. That's what disappoints me mostly. Okay.
Here's the John Stuart Mill link. I just put it in the thing, so you can find that quote there. That to have a constitution without a people to enforce it is like having a horse without a rider. So anyway.
Well, we've had a big night tonight. It's already 8:04, so we've been on here for about an hour. Christian, our video just popped up on the John Birch Society YouTube page, so I may close us out with that video. Does anybody have any final statements or questions they want to make? Because there's a lot of people on here that have time tomorrow. They can make calls. They can write emails. Calls are always better than emails, by the way. Does anybody have any advice for everybody on this right now? And we are going to, this is recorded, so we'll send this out too. So more people are going to see this. Susie or Christian?
Do I have any questions? What?
Any final remarks?
I would just say, I would ask those that live in other states that are not Georgia, if they could email the article that I wrote to friends and family that they have in Georgia, so then they can get their friends and family to contact their legislators. Because there was a question earlier about what can we do outside of Georgia. I don't have any family in Georgia, but any biological family that is in Georgia. I would send this article around. If you're on any Facebook groups, it may be conservative groups out there, circulate the article. There could be somebody who lives in Georgia that sees the article.
Can't you just open up the phone book and look up for Gomez's in like certain areas and just say, "Hey, cousin"?
Oh, that might work too. I suppose I could try that.
I'd like to suggest one step further, and that is sending your article, have people even out of state sending the article, because they have a vested interest in this, to those sponsors and to all the Republican senators. All we need to do is flip. I've never been so anxious in my whole life sitting last year watching this vote, but we have a little time to flip 8 to 10 more senators.
Let's make it happen, everybody. Give it your best shot tomorrow and in the weeks to come. Continue to read my emails and to watch what we're doing on thenewamerican.com, the John Birch Society website as well. There's just so much you can do to help preserve freedom so that we can have it in the future and that our kids and grandkids can have it as well. And so thank you all for joining us. Keep all the brave patriots in your prayers, especially Susie, and let's get it done in Georgia. I'm going to switch to this video, and Christian, thanks for joining us from Wisconsin. You can now go to sleep underneath your desk.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the morning.
I have your permission. And thank you, Susie. It was a pleasure speaking with you as well. I'm glad I got to connect with you here. Thank you for all that you do with the Eagle Forum and your efforts, speaking in the committee today. So I just want to thank you for your work as well, Susie. And also Daniel, it's, like I said in that message, it's an honor to be in the same video as you.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a joy, and I would like to talk to you more because we have one more fight to go on this, I'm sure, besides Monday.
Yeah, we're in a marathon battle here, but let's pretend like it's a sprint right now. Okay, everybody, we're gonna switch to the video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Evan.
Promoted as the 34th call for an Article 5
Convention, and if Congress was then to take it up based upon popular support for this Article 5 convention, we could be entering very dangerous times.
I'm Christian Gomez, and this is Constitution Corner. And joining us today to discuss a new aggressive scheme by the Article 5 convention lobby is Evan Mulch. Evan, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here, Christian.
So, Evan, you were at a committee hearing at the committee hearing at February 17th in the state of Georgia for SR 29 and SR 28 applications to Congress for an Article 5 convention. Can you tell us a little bit about these application resolutions and what the scheme is?
Well, one's a term limits bill and the other one's a balanced budget amendment bill. Both trying to call a con. But what these people are trying to do, the senators in particular, Senator Bill Cowsert, he's trying to convince the senators that Georgia will now be the 34th state to call an Article 5 convention, which, as you know, is a big deal because if a constitutional convention is called, then anything goes at this con. And we rightfully call it a con in the John Birch Society, just to emphasize the fact that we're being conned into this Article 5 convention. But in Georgia, for a long time, they've called Article 5 conventions, or a couple of times in the past 10 years, they've called Article 5 conventions. But this time they're redoing it all over again to make it sound like they're the 34th state. And this is a state that just helped steal the election, the presidential election for Joe Biden. And so there's a lot to be concerned about if you're a patriotic American, because here we go again with Georgia. We have a senator, Bill Cowsert in Georgia, that is wanting to make senators and House representatives believe that Georgia is going to be the 34th state if they particularly pass SR 29, which is the balanced budget amendment con bill.
Now, how would Georgia be the 34th state? Because there aren't already 33 other states that have passed applications for a balanced budget amendment convention.
Yeah, so they have to lie, and they have to fool people. So what they're doing is they're adding states from way long ago that passed calls for an Article 5 convention, and they're telling other people that they passed calls that were in agreement with adding a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution. And so this is not correct in what they're saying. And so what they're basically arguing is that this is a plenary call for an Article 5. It's aggregated call for an Article 5 convention where they're taking all these calls. One of them's from New York in 1789. It was actually a call to call a convention in order to add a Bill of Rights to the U.S. Constitution. And if you remember the Constitution, we did get the Bill of Rights added. So why are they using a call from 1789 from the state of New York to now in 2021 call this Article 5 convention? It's because they're desperate. They're trying to throw a last-minute Hail Mary into the end zone right now because they see that their money and their what they've been doing the past few years is just plateauing. And so, but patriots should not stand by. This is something all members of the John Birch Society should get involved in exposing what's taking place in Georgia, because what could happen is this: if this does pass, this could be very dangerous if the media were to promote it as the 34th call for an Article 5 convention. And if Congress was then to take it up based upon popular support for this Article 5 convention, we could be entering very dangerous times.
Absolutely. Going back to those 6 application calls that are not for a BBA, you have New York 1789, New Jersey, Kentucky, Illinois from 1861 to prevent the Civil War, and Oregon and Washington, which are for an open convention, but the Oregon one discusses the direct election of U.S. senators. So isn't it a bit disingenuous for these advocates of a convention to use application calls that have nothing to do with a balanced budget amendment just to reach their 34 when for years they've been saying to legislators across the country, all the applications have to be the same, because if they're all the same, then the convention can be limited to just one or whatever specific amendment that they want. So now they're changing their tune on that. Doesn't this, would you say that this exposes the lies of the Article 5 convention lobby?
Oh, absolutely. And as a field coordinator for the John Birch Society, I at first was, when I took this job as field coordinator, when I was at the state capitol in South Carolina, I was very friendly to convention of states people, and I still am. But I've noticed that they have they find it necessary to lie to get their way. And so this is what we have to deal with. And if they're willing to lie to get to where they are right now, trying to call this convention the way they're trying to call it, just think about what would happen at an actual Article 5 convention. What could be expected? Nothing would surprise me. It would not surprise me if they came out with a new constitution that took away the understanding that we have God-given rights and all that we currently have in the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Evan, for joining us today and explaining this vital issue to us. Don't just know your Constitution, live it. This has been Liberty News Hour. As always, you can go to thenewamerican.com and jbs.org for more information on these topics as well as more shows.